Hey YNR fans! Waving hand, welcome to YNR Trends, your go-to spot for the juiciest Young and the Restless updates, shocking spoilers, and all the drama you can't stop talking about. From surprise returns to scandalous twists, we break it all down for you, every day. So grab your coffee, hit that subscribe button, and let's dive right into Genoa City's hottest gossip. Audra had always carried herself with confidence, the kind of sharp composure that made people think she could never be shaken. She was ambitious, strong, and willing to take risks that others wouldn't dare. But no amount of bravado or control could prepare her for the moment she heard her mother speak the words she had longed for and feared at the same time. The name of her father. For years, Audra had lived with a gnawing ache inside her, a question that followed her through every business deal, every relationship, every night she stared at herself in the mirror. She had asked her mother dozens of times, pleaded in moments of vulnerability, demanded in moments of anger, but her mother never gave her an answer. Sometimes she would brush it off with a cold smile, other times she would change the subject with a glass of wine in hand, and occasionally she would look so pained that Audra stopped pressing, but the silence always returned. And now, finally, that silence was broken, and the name that came out of her mother's mouth left her knees weak, her chest heavy, and her eyes stinging with tears she couldn't control. Audra had not expected to cry. She thought she had built walls so high that nothing could pierce them. She thought she had armored herself against disappointment, against rejection, against the very possibility that the truth would undo her. Yet when she heard the name, when she felt the weight of it settle over the room, her body betrayed her. She gasped, her lips trembling, and her vision blurred as hot tears slipped down her cheeks. Her mother, who had always been distant and calculating, actually reached out as if to steady her daughter, but Audra stepped back, shaking her head in disbelief. This couldn't be real. She had imagined dozens of possibilities, some men who were powerful, some who were ordinary, even some she had read about in old gossip articles, but this name, this truth, was not one she had ever truly expected. And it was a name that carried shockwaves through Genoa City, because the moment it left her mother's lips, it set off panic in Jack Abbott and Victor Newman, two men who had spent their lives protecting their own empires and hiding their own sins. Jack and Victor had faced countless storms before, but there was something about Audra's mother stepping forward with this revelation that rattled them both in a way few things could. She had chosen her timing carefully, waiting until the perfect moment, when both men were distracted by business feuds, family squabbles, and a fragile peace that could shatter at any second. She walked into the room like she owned it, her eyes locked on Jack first, then Victor, letting them know she wasn't here to play games anymore. Her voice was steady, but her words cut deeper than anyone expected. She told them that the truth about Audra's father was going to come out whether they wanted it to or not. And when she said the name, when she tied it to a past that both men had tried to bury, panic flashed in their eyes. For all their power, for all their reputations as titans who never flinched, they looked like men who had just seen the walls of their carefully built kingdoms begin to crack. Audra, still reeling from the shock, barely noticed the way Jack clenched his jaw or the way Victor's hands tightened into fists at his sides. She was too lost in her own storm of emotions, her tears running freely as she tried to understand what this meant for her. Who was she now that she knew her father's name? Did this change everything she thought she knew about herself, about her ambition, about the path she had been carving for herself? For so long she had told herself she didn't need to know, that she was strong enough to stand on her own, that her mother's silence was just another obstacle she could overcome. But now that the truth was out, she realized how much she had been carrying, how much she had been denying herself. And as much as it broke her, as much as the revelation sent her spiraling, she couldn't deny that some part of her was relieved to finally know. Her mother, watching her daughter unravel, showed a flicker of something Audra hadn't seen in years: guilt. She had always been guarded, manipulative, and unwilling to let anyone see behind her mask, but in that moment, guilt softened her expression. She whispered that she never wanted to tell Audra this way, that she had been protecting her, that the truth was dangerous. And maybe that was why Victor and Jack looked the way they did, why their panic was so raw. Because this wasn't just a family matter. This wasn't just about Audra's identity. This was about power, legacy, and secrets that could destroy lives if they reached the wrong ears. Victor was the first to speak, his voice low and controlled, but edged with fury. He demanded to know what Audra's mother thought she was doing, why she would bring this up now, why she would risk dragging so many people into chaos. Jack, on the other hand, was quieter, his mind racing as he tried to calculate the fallout, his blue eyes darting between Audra and her mother with an unease he couldn't hide. They both knew this was a ticking time bomb, and if the wrong person learned the truth, it could ignite a war neither of them was prepared to fight. But for Audra, none of that mattered in the moment. All she could hear was the name echoing in her head like a haunting refrain. All she could feel was the ground shifting beneath her feet, the life she thought she was living unraveling piece by piece. And as her tears fell harder, as her body shook with the weight of emotions she didn't even know how to name, she realized she had reached a crossroads. She could let this truth break her, or she could find a way to use it, to turn her pain into power, to make her father's name a weapon instead of a wound. And yet, in the back of her mind, one question refused to be silenced. If her father was truly who her mother claimed, why had he abandoned her? Why had he allowed her to grow up in the shadows, always searching for answers she was never given? Why had he chosen silence over acknowledgement? The questions only made her cry harder, her sobs filling the room as her mother's hand hovered in the air, unsure if she should try to comfort her or let her grieve alone. The emotional landscape of soap operas is often painted with broad strokes, where joy, betrayal, and despair are delivered with an intensity designed to captivate a daily audience. Yet, within this heightened reality, certain moments transcend the typical melodrama to reveal a profound, human truth that resonates deeply. One such moment is the scene in The Young and the Restless where Audra Charles, a character renowned for her steely composure and strategic ruthlessness, collapses into raw, uncontrollable tears upon finally learning the identity of her father. This is not merely a plot point designed to create a week's worth of drama, it is the seismic culmination of a lifetime of absence, a key that unlocks the core of a seemingly impenetrable character. The subsequent panic exhibited by Jack Abbott and Victor Newman, two of Genoa City's most powerful and usually unflappable patriarchs, upon learning that Audra's mother, Gloria Bardwell, is privy to this information, transforms a personal tragedy into a potential corporate and familial earthquake. This sequence of events functions on multiple levels, as the heartbreaking resolution of Audra's personal quest for identity, as a masterclass in the disruptive power of long-buried secrets, and as a testament to the idea that the most dangerous weapon in a corporate battle is often a personal truth from the distant past. To fully appreciate the weight of Audra's tears, one must understand the persona she has meticulously constructed. Audra Charles arrived in Genoa City as a force of nature, ambitious, cunning, and emotionally guarded. Her worth in the cutthroat world of Newman Media and later, Chabot Collective, was measured by her ability to manipulate, strategize, and remain detached. She navigated romantic entanglements with powerful men like Kyle Abbott and Tucker McCall not as quests for love, but as moves on a chessboard, furthering her position and influence. Her armor was her most valuable asset, a necessary defense mechanism forged in a past she kept deliberately vague. This history was characterized by a single, defining void, the absence of her father. His identity was a mystery, a missing piece of herself that she carried with her like a ghost. This unspoken longing was the one vulnerability in her otherwise formidable facade, a quiet ache that informed her relentless drive for security and recognition. She sought in power and status what was denied to her in love and belonging, a validation that could, in her mind, perhaps fill the paternal void. Her entire life became a performance for an audience of one, a father she didn't know, a man whose approval she could never earn but whose absence she could never forget. The revelation, therefore, is not just the receiving of information, it is an existential event. The manner in which she learns the truth is critical. It is unlikely delivered with tenderness or care. In the world of Genoa City, truths are often weapons, and this one is doubtless wielded as such, perhaps by a rival seeking to destabilize her or by her mother, Gloria, in a moment of heated conflict or calculated manipulation. The name itself, when finally spoken, lands not as a word but as a physical blow. In that instant, the carefully constructed edifice of Audra's identity shatters. The tears that follow are not those of simple sadness or even joy, they are a complex torrent of a lifetime of pent-up emotion. There is relief, the agonizing quest is finally over. There is rage, at the years of wondering, at the lies or silence that kept the truth from her. There is profound grief for the relationship that never was, for the little girl who grew up without a father's love. There is also potential horror or shock, depending on the identity revealed. Is he a man she knows? A man she has worked with, clashed with, or even despised? The psychological implications are staggering. Her entire worldview, her understanding of her own place in the Genoa city hierarchy, is suddenly and irrevocably rearranged. The crying is a purging of the old Audra, the one defined by a lack, and the painful, violent birth of a new one who must now integrate this monumental truth into her being. It is a moment of absolute vulnerability, a rare glimpse of the wounded child beneath the corporate titan, and it is this raw humanity that makes the scene so powerfully affecting. The specific identity of the father is the engine that drives the next crucial phase of the drama, the panic of Jack and Victor. While the audience witnesses Audra's personal devastation, the narrative immediately cuts to the corridors of power, where the revelation is not a personal tragedy but a strategic threat of the highest order. The fact that it is Gloria Bardwell, a woman with a long and checkered history in Genoa City, who holds this knowledge and has chosen to disclose it, is what triggers the panic. Gloria is not a neutral party, she is a wild card, a survivor whose allegiances are often to herself and her own survival. Her presence in the equation signals that this deeply personal secret is now in play as a commodity, a piece of intelligence that can be traded, weaponized, or used as leverage. Jack Abbott's panic is likely rooted in the intricate and often toxic history of the Abbott family. The Abbott name is synonymous with legacy, tradition, and a certain kind of respectable corporate power. A scandal of this magnitude, emerging from the past of a woman like Gloria, has the potential to shatter that carefully maintained image. If Audra's father is a prominent Abbott, or someone closely tied to the family's history, it could destabilize the current family structure, threaten inheritance lines, and create a public relations nightmare for Jabot. Jack, as the patriarch, is the guardian of the Abbott legacy. His panic is not just for himself, but for the protection of his family's name and the business that bears it. He immediately understands that Gloria's knowledge is a loose cannon on the deck of his very stable ship. She is unpredictable, and an unpredictable person in possession of a devastating secret is the ultimate liability. His mind would race through the possibilities: blackmail, public exposure, the emotional impact on his siblings and children, and the potential for Audra herself, now armed with this knowledge and a lifetime of resentment, to become a hostile force directed at the Abbott empire. Victor Newman's panic, while perhaps less outwardly expressive than Jack's, would be no less profound. Victor's entire life's work has been the construction and absolute control of his empire and his family. He is a man who believes in controlling the narrative at all costs. A secret from the past, especially one that involves a woman like Gloria who has been tangentially connected to his family for years, represents a variable he cannot control. For Victor, knowledge is power, and someone else holding a powerful piece of knowledge about a key player in his business world, as Audra has been, is an intolerable situation. His panic stems from the threat to his control. He would be calculating the impact on Newman Enterprises. Could this be used to manipulate Audra, who holds a position of influence? Could it distract her, making her a liability? Could it be used by his enemies to embarrass him or his company? Furthermore, Victor's own history is a tapestry of hidden children and paternal revelations. He of all people understands the explosive and destructive potential of such a truth. He knows that a single revelation can topple empires and tear families apart because he has both been the victim and the architect of such revelations. His panic is that of a master chess player who sees a piece on the board, previously considered neutral, suddenly being moved by an unseen hand, threatening his entire endgame. The beautiful narrative irony lies in the juxtaposition of these two reactions. For Audra, the revelation is a deeply intimate, soul-altering event. For Jack and Victor, the same fact is stripped of its humanity and analyzed purely as a strategic threat. Their panic is not for Audra's well-being, it is for the preservation of their own power structures. This highlights a central theme of the genre and of these characters' lives. Personal histories are never truly personal in Genoa City, they are ammunition. A person's deepest pain is another's leverage in a boardroom battle. Gloria's act of telling her daughter the truth, however motivated, is not treated as a mother fulfilling a long-overdue duty. It is treated by the powerful men as a declaration of war, or at the very least, the lighting of a fuse on a bomb they must desperately race to defuse. The aftermath of this sequence of events opens up a vast array of narrative possibilities. Audra's journey becomes one of integration and action. How does she process this new identity? Does she seek out her father for confrontation or connection? Does her rage over the years of deprivation make her vengeful, and if so, who does she target? Does she align with her mother, Gloria, forming a new and dangerous alliance based on this shared knowledge, or does she resent Gloria even more for withholding the truth for so long? Her relationships with every character in Genoa City are now filtered through this new lens. Her dynamic with Kyle Abbott, if her father is an Abbott, becomes fraught with new complexity. Her professional decisions at Newman Media or wherever she lands will be viewed with suspicion, as everyone wonders if she is acting on corporate strategy or personal, paternal loyalty. For Jack and Victor, the panic will manifest as action. They will likely converge, despite their legendary rivalry, in a temporary alliance of mutual self-interest. Their first priority will be to contain Gloria. This could involve intimidation, offers of money for her silence, or threats of exposing her own past misdeeds. They will seek to manage Audra, attempting to predict her moves and neutralize her as a threat. They will be digging through their own pasts, consulting old records, and trying to get ahead of the story, attempting to control a narrative that has already slipped from their grasp. The secret, now out of the bottle, cannot be put back in, and their frantic efforts to do so will only create more drama, more lies, and more collateral damage. In conclusion, the scene of Audra crying upon learning her father's name is far more than a moment of high drama. It is the critical nexus where personal trauma collides with corporate power. Audra's tears represent the cathartic release of a lifetime of searching, the shattering of a facade, and the painful acquisition of a self-knowledge that is both devastating and liberating. It is a moment that earns its emotional weight because it is the payoff to a long-built character history. Conversely, the panic of Jack and Victor reveals the mechanics of power in their world. It shows that their greatest vulnerabilities are not business rivals or market crashes, but the ghosts of their own pasts and the unpredictable actions of those they consider beneath their notice. The fact that Gloria Bardwell, often dismissed as a scheming nuisance, can send two of the most powerful men in the Midwest into a tailspin simply by speaking a name to her daughter, is a powerful reminder that in the world of the young and the restless, the heart of the drama always lies not in the boardroom, but in the unhealed wounds of the family, and that the most potent currency is, and always will be, the truth.